Hey, welcome to The Explainer. Today we're digging into a series of documents that lay out a pretty radical experiment in American governance, one that's all about fundamentally remaking the federal government from the inside out. Okay, let's just dive right in. This quote here, from a global risk report dated January 17th, 2026, really sets the stage. It paints this picture of a world in total upheaval, where the old ways of doing things are being, and I'm quoting here, aggressively dismantled. And we're not talking about small policy tweaks. No, the sources are describing a huge foundational shift. I mean, this report describes a world where the old rules just don't seem to apply anymore. The sources detail things like a U.S. military operation to actually abduct the president of Venezuela, and the creation of this very unconventional, almost corporate-style board of peace to govern Gaza. Events like these signal a massive change in how things are done, which brings up a huge question. How did we even get to this point? To make sense of this shift, the sources keep pointing back to one single entity, a brand new department right at the heart of it all. It's called the Department of Government Efficiency, or as it's better known, DOGE. Now, what's really interesting here is the official purpose, pulled right from the executive order that created it. On paper, its mission is to modernize technology and boost productivity. And let's be honest, it's tackling that age-old complaint that the government is just too slow and bloated. It sounds pretty good, right? But as the documents show, what it says on the tin, well, that's not the whole story. So who's behind this? The sources point to three key people. You've got President Donald Trump, who kicked the whole thing off with that executive order. He then brought in Elon Musk to be, and this is a direct quote from the president, in charge. The plan was also pushed by Vivek Ramaswamy. The sources really frame Musk as the hands-on leader, brought in to inject that private sector, tech industry mindset directly into the machinery of government. So how did DOGE actually work? According to these documents, it wasn't your typical government department, with a huge building and thousands of employees. Let's get into their playbook and see how they operated. Okay, so the core of the whole operation is what's called a DOGE team. The best way to think about it is like a tiny, agile startup team. You've got an engineer, an HR specialist, a lawyer, and a team lead. And these little teams get embedded directly into every single major federal agency. Their job? To completely overhaul the place from the inside. Now, you might be wondering, how on earth does a tiny four-person team get any real power? Well, here's the kicker. The founding executive order gave them unprecedented, legally protected access to pretty much everything. All the records, all the software, all the IT systems. It basically said any old rules that might get in their way, they don't apply anymore. And get this, it really shows you just how unique this whole setup was. DOGE's initial budget, nearly $40 million, didn't come from Congress. Nope. The sources state it was funded by transfer payments from other federal agencies. So in a way, the existing bureaucracy was forced to pay for its own overhaul. The work culture was apparently just as intense as you'd imagine from that tech startup world. One source cites Elon Musk stating on social media that DOGE workers were pulling 120-hour weeks. I mean, that kind of pace tells you everything you need to know about the urgency here. They wanted to remake the government, and they wanted to do it fast. So what was one of the big goals of all this work? A massive reduction in the federal workforce. This slide shows a truly staggering target that the sources documented, cutting 70% of the jobs at the Office of Personnel Management. And just to be clear, the OPM isn't some small office. It's the entire federal government's HR department, managing records for over 2 million employees. Okay, so when you move that fast and try to change things that drastically, well, you're gonna make some waves. And that's exactly what these documents show. This aggressive, high-speed approach led to some major consequences and, you guessed it, a lot of controversy. For example, take DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. An internal DOGE report laid out this systematic three-phase plan to get rid of it completely. First, they'd get rid of all the DEI offices and related orders. But then it went further. Step 2 was to purge employees who they felt were corrupted by those ideas. And step 3, mass firings based on what the source calls unknown criteria. And technology was a huge part of how they did all this. The sources described them rolling out their own proprietary AI. And this wasn't just some helpful chatbot. It was used to analyze employee spending for signs of waste or DEI activity. And they even built software that could help automate the process of firing government workers. So what did this look like in practice at an actual agency? Well, the documents give us a really clear timeline for USAID, the Agency for International Development. DOGE members arrive in early February. When senior security officials resist giving them access to classified systems, they're just placed on leave. By late March, just weeks later, the administration was already moving to shut down the entire agency. And here's a pretty big contradiction. One of DOGE's stated goals was to ensure data integrity, but moving this fast created some, well, let's just say serious security issues. This slide shows a stark contrast documented by a whistleblower. Just minutes after a DOGE team gained control of the National Labor Relations Board systems, login attempts were detected from a Russian IP address using an account that team had just created. Then there was the attempted sell-off of federal real estate. A list of 443 properties for sale was published. But briefly and pretty alarmingly, that list included a secret, highly sensitive complex in Virginia used by the CIA for clandestine operations. The list was quickly edited and then pulled offline entirely, which really highlights the chaotic pace of these changes. So when you step back and look at all of this, what's the big picture? The sources are pretty clear that this wasn't just about cutting budgets or a simple efficiency drive. This was about the intentional creation of a brand new way to govern. And this is really the core idea here. The material describes it as a move toward a techno-transactional model. So what does that mean? Essentially, it's about running a government with the speed, the ideology, and the top-down control of a tech startup, where rapid execution is prioritized over traditional bureaucratic processes and stability. And that leaves us with a final, massive question to consider based on everything these documents describe. What are the trade-offs of this approach? What is gained in this relentless pursuit of efficiency? And what might be lost along the way?